This story begins as our injured protagonist named Ian stands at the edge of a cliff. He blames himself for being too weak, but finds relief in knowing that this will be the end. Ian throws himself off the edge and wonders if there was ever any point in him being alive in the first place. In the end, he was never able to accomplish a single thing, and now it's simply over. In his last moments, Ian thinks about how poorly he was treated and how his life was the worst. People treated him like garbage, and now he will pass away like the trash he is. A while earlier, we watch as a warrior takes on a giant rat monster. He does well to fend it off, but he gets impatient when his partner takes too long with her incantation. She eventually completes it and launches a powerful fireball that absolutely roasts the beast. With that done, the warrior calls on the trash picker of their team, and we see that it's Ian. Ian tries to tell the guy that his name isn't Trash Picker, but he ends up tripping and Ian's teammates mock him for being so useless. The mage says they should pity him instead, because the trash picker isn't a high common class like they are. Instead, he's just low common garbage. Ian apologizes for falling as he blames having to carry everything, but Zoid the warrior tells him to just hurry up and appraise the beast. It turns out that Ian's occupation is the low common appraiser. In this world, the goddess of light grants people a job at birth, and the goddess of darkness grants them skills. By training their skills, people can hone all kinds of abilities, but jobs are passed down through generations and can never be changed. Jobs are divided into 3 tiers. The highest tier is for the rare classes, which only contain a very talented few. This includes people like wealthy merchants and military strategists. In the middle is the high common tier, which includes people like his teammates, Zoid and Jolene. They are swordsmen, mages, and others who can fight. Lastly, the lowest tier is low common. These people are the peasants and appraisers who are unfit for battle. Jobs are inherited to children usually, so they can carry on their parents' trade. However, in Ian's case, he lost his parents very early, so he couldn't keep up the family business. Because of this, he decided to become an adventurer. He had dreams of becoming rich, but things never go as planned. Ian uses his appraisal skill and finds that the rat has an F rating for its rarity. That's as low as it gets, but surprisingly its incisors are AD rank. Ian fails to yank out the tooth, so he asks Zoid for some help. Zoid is insulted as he would never touch a filthy rat, and Jolene reminds Ian that handling trash is the trash picker's job. Zoid hits Ian with a rock and gets even more upset when Ian glares at him. He kicks our boy onto the ground and Jolene reminds him that they are protecting him. She says that Ian should be more grateful, and Ian has no choice but to apologize. He knows that this world just isn't fair, so he gets back to work. His teammates continue to mock him as he simply does his job, and Jolene is disgusted by what he has to do. The two can't believe how much of a trash job appraising is, and they can barely watch as Ian must shove his hand into the rat's mouth. Ian can only agree with them because all he is good for is finding and carving materials out of monsters. It's pretty much the equivalent of rifling through trash. Zoid piles on by pointing out that Ian's only part of his party because he didn't want to put disgusting monster parts into his magic bag. The two call him the trash picker boy and tell him to hurry up so they can continue their mission. Ian does as they say because he has no choice but to endure. The only way he can survive in this world is by doing his job and picking through garbage. Moments later, Zoid can't believe their luck as they happen to find the corpse of a hellhound. Zoid sends the trash picker Ian to pick for parts, but Ian is hesitant. Guild intel says that this type of monster shouldn't be in this dungeon. Of course, Zoid just tells him to do his job, and the two jerks think about everything they will do with the money. Ian's appraisal reveals that the hellhound's parts have rarity, and he starts picking it apart. Just then, Zoid notices that there's another hellhound nearby, and excitedly tells Ian to do that one too. Ian is frozen in terror, however, as he's smarter than Zoid and he notices that something is wrong. The map from the guild says that there should only be a single corridor. Zoid dismisses his concern by saying that the map is simply wrong, but Ian thinks this is a terrible sign and says that they should leave. Zoid couldn't care less about his opinion, and tells Ian to just leave on his own. He's tired of all the back talk, so he threatens to fire Ian if he doesn't follow them. Zoid says that he won't even pay Ian what he's earned, and gives him one last chance to change his mind. Ian is in a terrible position because not many parties will take someone with a worthless job like his. Being in Zoid's party is the only ways he can make ends meet, so he has no choice but to follow. Ian is furious, but he knows that life is just not fair. A while later, Zoid is even happier when they find a ton of slain hellhounds. Ian is worried as he wonders what could be defeating these high-level monsters. If they were other adventurers, then they would have collected the items. Zoid isn't interested in using his brain, but Ian is terrified when he points out that several living hellhounds have appeared. The jerks finally realize that they are in serious danger, and Ian determines that the pack must have just been fighting over food. Jolene doubts they could even defeat one of these beasts, so they decide to run away. Running seems impossible as well, but Zoid comes up with a sinister plan. With evil in his eyes, he tells Jolene to cast a paralyze spell on Ian. Ian is horrified, but Jolene is on board. She apologizes as she's not ready to die yet, and she paralyzes our hero. She explains that if he's lucky, the paralyzation will wear off soon, and he might even be able to get away before being torn to pieces. Zoid slams his foot onto Ian, and tells the pack that dinner is served. Ian can only watch in horror as his teammates say goodbye, and they leave him behind. He can barely get the words out as he begs for help, but it's too late. The pack descends upon Ian, and begins tearing into him. Luckily, the pain cancels out the paralysis, and Ian is able to defend himself. Tossing his bag reveals all the apples he was carrying, and this buys him just enough time to escape. Ian limps away as fast as he can, but he is horrified to find that his treacherous teammates have blocked the exit. The traitors trapped him in, but luckily there's another corridor. Unfortunately, it just leads to a dead end, and the sounds of the hellhounds make it clear that Ian can't turn back either. Going forward means falling off the cliff to his demise, and going backwards means being eaten alive. Ian can only laugh as he is left with the horrible choice to make, and he blames his birth as a worthless appraiser. He became an adventurer in the hopes of changing his life, but he just ended up being mocked. Ian bowed his head to the mockers, but he still ended up just being abandoned. Ian once again blames his useless appraisal skill, but starts to wonder if it's really to blame. Just then, in a moment of clarity, Ian realizes that he's actually the one to blame. He just blamed everything on his job, and ran away while placing limits on himself. Unfortunately, it's too late, but Ian has realized that it's all his fault for being so weak. Ian takes the plunge, and we hear what he said at the start. He was treated like garbage, and now he will die like trash. Moments later, we find the unconscious Ian in a strange place as a mysterious woman approaches him. She gives our hero a kiss on the forehead, and he wakes up a moment later. Ian is stunned to find that he's still alive, and somehow all his injuries have been healed. He is then amazed by a giant tree nearby that is surrounded by giant walls of water, and he uses his appraisal skill and a droplet that falls from the tree. The appraisal results stun our boy, as it reveals that it's a droplet from the world tree. His appraisal of the tree confirms that it really is the world tree, but it shocks him because he didn't believe it actually existed. Legend says that long ago the world had a single world tree. For people to produce the magic energy that they use day to day, they breathe in mana from the atmosphere and convert it within their bodies. The tree responsible for that mana is the world tree. Supposedly it withered away long ago, but no one can figure out how mana still existed. Geniuses assumed that other world trees must have existed, but despite exploring every inch above ground, none were ever found. That makes sense because no one would think to look so deep down in a random dungeon. Ian can tell that the tree was what saved his life, so he thanks it, but he hears a voice nearby. Nothing is there, so he just ignores it, and he's surprised that there are no monsters nearby. Ian is left to wonder what his next move will be, because he is assured that the traders won't send for help and he has no food. Ian can only move forward, so he thanks the tree one last time. As he leaves, we see that the mysterious girl from before appears, and she's worried about our boy. This is clearly uncharted territory, as none of this was on the guild map. Because of this, Ian fears that there might be monsters even stronger than the hellhounds nearby. Those hellhounds messed him up pretty good, but Ian gathers himself as he has no choice but to move forward. His near-death experience has given him a new outlook in life, and he vows to never put limits on himself ever again. Armed with a rock, Ian makes his way through the dungeon, but he is shocked by the lack of monsters. This is of course a relief, and all that is left is to find a way out. Unfortunately, the nightmare has just begun as something chops off Ian's ear. The pain is unbearable as he tries to get his ear back, but something slices off his fingers. Ian uses appraisal on the attacker, and he's horrified to find that it's an S-rank gremlin. The beast instantly cuts into him, and Ian is reminded that being able to learn his opponent's rank doesn't mean he is strong enough to fight it. Ian tries to escape, but he's at the monster's mercy. The gremlin goes in to end his life, but Ian is stunned to see that it stopped and it's now trembling in fear. The gremlin gets absolutely crushed, and Ian is horrified to see that an S-rank death bear has appeared. The beast claws right through Ian's face, destroying one of his eyes, and the bear begins to crush him. Ian gives up as he prepares for death, but a mysterious kid appears to save him. The kid complains about a girl begging him to save Ian, and he tells our hero not to get the wrong idea. Ian loses consciousness, and when he wakes up we see that his ruined eye has been replaced. He is backed by the World Tree, and is stunned once again to see that his wounds are healed. Ian sees the mysterious girl for the first time, and he is left speechless by her beauty. He compares her to one of the elves you see in fairy tales, and she gives our hero a smile. Just then some girl scolds Ian for not drinking the tea her daughter made for him. She wants him to show his gratitude by drinking the tea, but something was distracting Ian so much that he didn't notice the girl holding a cup. Ian wants to know who they are first, but the mother just forces him to drink her daughter's tea. Ian says it tastes delicious, and he thinks it's cute how the girl's ears move when she's happy about him liking the tea. The protective mother is infuriated by this, and warns Ian that she will erase him from this world if he even has bad thoughts about her daughter. It turns out that this little old lady was the one that saved Ian. She had no desire to save a lower life form like Ian, but her daughter named Yuri practically begged her to help. The old bag's name is Ursula, and she demands that Ian be grateful. Yuri says that she didn't really do anything, but Ursula never would have rescued Ian if it wasn't for her. Ursula demands for Ian to grovel on his knees for Yuri and show some thanks, so he does. He thanks Yuri much to her delight, but Ursula is furious to see him being so casual by calling her by her first name. Ian can't believe that Ursula is a mother, and she reveals that she's also a guardian of the World Tree. This world has 9 of these trees, and the guardians are in charge of ensuring they live in peace. They stay by them to watch over them, and occasionally protect them from outside attacks. Ursula has been living in this place ever since the tree first put down its roots. Ian notices that she's been talking about Yuri, and Ursula reveals that Yuri is actually the World Tree itself. More precisely, she is the will of the World Tree, and could be considered as the tree spirit. Ian says this explains why she's so beautiful, but Yuri doesn't know how to handle the compliment. Of course, this makes Ursula rage out again, and she warns Ian to keep his dirty hands off of Yuri. She exclaims that she didn't give him back his eye, just to stare at her daughter, but Ian doesn't know what she means. Ian only now remembers getting wrecked by some bear, and how his eye got shredded to pieces. Surprisingly, he's all healed up now, and Ursula reveals that she healed his wounds, using droplets from the World Tree. Unfortunately, the droplets can't restore crushed eyeballs, so the girls did something very gracious for him. They actually used part of the World Tree itself to make Ian an artificial eye. Some would call it a prosthetic spirit eye. Of course, Yuri requested this herself, as she asked Ursula to use her powers so Ian could see again. Ian can't understand why Yuri wanted to help him so much, so she explains that it was because he thanked her when they first met. Ursula explains that it's very rare for someone to fall in this abyss, but when they do, Yuri always saves them. However, not a single one has ever shown any gratitude. Actually, it's pretty much the opposite. After they find that she is the World Tree, most of the ungrateful adventurers begin tearing off leaves and branches to take for themselves. This is why a simple thank you from Ian made her so happy. Ian thanks her once again, and this makes Yuri go crazy. Ursula says that they are done with saving Ian, so he can get lost now, but Yuri's worried. It's really dangerous in the abyss, and she fears that Ian might die. Of course, the tiny old lady couldn't care less, but Yuri wonders if there is something they can do. Ursula reminds her that her oath as a guardian only allows her to stray a certain distance from Yuri. This makes it impossible for her to escort Ian back out. Unfortunately, teleportation magic doesn't work in this dungeon either. Yuri begins to cry from the hopelessness, but Ursula can't stand to see her so sad. She realizes just how much her daughter cares for this boy, so she fights her own hate for him and comes up with a solution. She points right at our boy and declares that she will train him herself. She will make him strong enough to leave this place on his own. Ian is shocked to hear that he will actually be able to leave this place alive, and he thinks the ladies again. Ursula angrily explains that he will be getting personal training from the most powerful mage, so she will not accept anything other than his best effort. Ian refuses to waste this opportunity, and vows to do his best. As they head out, Ian wonders if Ursula is just planning to throw him right into battle. Ursula doesn't ease his concern, as she explains that starting out leisurely with the theoretical study will just take forever, and Ian will be a creaky old geezer by the time he gets out. There is no time to waste as Ursula wants to make him strong as fast as possible. They come to a stop as she tells Ian to look at something, but he just sees darkness. Ursula scolds the half-wit and reminds him that his left eye was generously replaced with a piece of the world tree. Ian says that his vision hasn't changed at all, but Ursula says that it's only because he lacks awareness. Just then, Ian thinks deep about how he lost his eye and fell into darkness. It wasn't until Yuri gifted him this eye that he was able to see light again. Everything he will see in this world from now on is thanks to the light that Yuri bestowed upon him. Just then, as he thinks of how grateful he is, Ian's eye begins to feel warm. He opens his eyes and is shocked to find that they seem to be in a completely different place. Ursula is pleased and declares that it's finally time for his training to start. She wakes up a monster like the one that first attacked him, and it quickly attacks. Ursula explains that for step 1, Ian will have to dodge all its movements. Ian wonders if that's even possible, but Ursula reminds him that he has the power of appraisal. He does, but Ian points out that the appraisal skill is only good for getting intel. Ursula calls him a foolish child, and reveals that appraising with spirit eye is nothing like doing it with human eye. Ian uses appraisal with his spirit eye, and is shocked to find that it's actually appraising the monster's next move. It's very descriptive, as it says that the monster will use its scythe to cut off his right ear, and Ian is amazed. His amazement doesn't last long, however, as Ian just stands there and the beast cuts his ear off. As he writhes in pain, Ursula explains that a spirit eye can appraise much more than any human ever could. It can appraise his opponent's moves, and Ian confirms that the beast did just what its appraise said it would. Ian loses a ton of blood, so Ursula heals him right up. She brought some droplets that Yuri kindly gave her. With these, it won't matter how badly Ian gets sliced up, because Ursula will just be able to heal him right back. She wants Ian to be dead serious about learning some new techniques, and there's no time to waste. The monster moves in for another attack, and Ian's appraisal reveals that it's attacking his left leg with its scythe. Unfortunately, there's no way he can dodge it with his current reflexes. It would help if he could also know the exact timing of the attack, but he reminds himself that he has a spirit eye now, and he just needs to think beyond human limitations. Ian tries to use reappraise, and he is shocked when it works. It shows that the attack will land in 5 seconds, so Ian begins counting down. His timing is perfect, and he surprisingly manages to dodge the attack. This is the first time he has ever dodged an attack from an S-rank monster, and he couldn't be happier. He tries to share his happiness with Ursula, but being distracted only leads to him getting sliced up again. Ian realizes that he can't get cocky, and he needs to work hard. He wants to be able to use appraise as naturally as breathing. Ian is confident that once he learns to do that, his entire world is going to change. Ian dodges several more attacks, and we learn that it's now been 1 week since they started training. Ian uses his appraisal much better now, but he once again celebrates too early and gets cut up. Ursula is actually glad because pain is the best teacher, but Ian doesn't like how much he is enjoying this. As Ursula heals him, she reveals that Ian has received a passing grade, and it's time to move on to the next lesson. For this one, he will have to defeat the gremlin, but Ian reminds the old lady that he doesn't have a combat job. Ursula of course knows this, and explains that he won't be relying on skills. It's all about relying on his spirit eye. She hands our boy a wooden sword made from the world tree, and reveals that Yuri insisted that it be given to Ian. Yuri bore the pain of snapping off one of her branches just for Ian, so Ursula says that he can't refuse. He can't let it break either, or Ursula promises to break him. As Ursula sobs at the wonderful gesture, Ian vows to be careful with it, and he thanks Yuri. Just then, the monster comes at him again, and Ian uses appraise to determine when and where it's going to attack. Ian thinks it will be as simple as waiting for the perfect time to strike, and he begins his countdown. The perfect time comes, but he ends up missing. Ursula explains that he's too slow, but she doesn't give him any advice. Ian's next idea is to hold his sword where it's going to attack, but that doesn't work either. He remembers that the monster is a living creature with a brain, so it makes sense that it would dodge when it saw a weapon. Ian becomes frustrated as humans and spirits don't see things the same way, and he just isn't getting it. Luckily, his instructor finally helps out, and reminds him that moves are not the only thing his spirit eye can appraise. Ian thinks carefully and notices that appraise also reveals the trajectory of his opponent's attack. Instead of using his normal appraise, Ian remembers to use his spirit eye, and he uses super appraise. Ian is stunned as the gremlin has stopped moving, but he realizes what is really happening. When he appraises the trajectory of an attack, he gets to see the opponent's move in slow motion. This allows Ian to finally land an attack, but he is stunned to see that he defeated the gremlin with one swing. He realizes that while everything seemed to be moving in slow motion, he was still moving at normal speed during appraise. This amplified his speed in real time, so his attack struck with a ton of force. Ian celebrates his first time defeating anything, and to make it better, it was even an S-rank monster. Ursula scolds him for the millionth time, after celebrating too early again, and she explains that this was nothing. For the next part of his training, he will have to defeat all the gremlins in the area. Nearby, Yuri hopes that Ian is doing okay. A while later, we return to our boy to find that he has improved greatly, and defeated all of the gremlins. As for the next part of the training, Ian will have to appraise the gremlin's ability, and make it his own. Ursula explains that humans can acquire skills by learning them, but monsters are born with innate abilities. Ian is confident he can appraise abilities, but he seriously doubts that he can take them. Ursula calls him a silly kid, and reminds him that appraisal has always been about reading information on an opponent. The user understands the information and gains knowledge from it. However, now that Ian has a spirit eye, he can do more than just gain knowledge from that info. Now, he can also gain experience. Ian gives it a try on one of the corpses, but this makes him feel intense pain. As he screams in agony, Ian describes it as information being pounded directly into his brain. Ian wonders if he has the abilities of the gremlin now, so Ursula tells him to test it out. Ian finds that he now has incredible speed, but his body isn't able to handle it all. All of his muscles are completely torn, but Ursula says it's to be expected. She heals him and just tells him to keep running. She explains that you don't just use your legs while running, you use your entire body. Also, muscle fibers get stronger every time they tear, so he just needs to keep running. Ursula laughs like a maniac as she says that he just needs to endure this pain a few 100,000 times, and he will have a body that can withstand any kind of speed. Eventually, after days of running, Ian's muscle fibers stopped tearing, and he was able to build a strong and flexible physique. Ian's voice seems to deepen, as he's much more confident now and he thinks he might be ready to take down a death bear. Ursula reminds him not to get too full of himself, as there is still a long way to go. Ian gets pretty down on himself, but Ursula decides to help him out even more. She really hates to do it, but she will now let Ian appraise her ability. He wonders what it is, so she gives him a demonstration. She wonders if he appraised it in time, but Ursula didn't even give him a warning. Ursula explains that what she just used was called discard incantation. It's an ability that allows a person to use magic just by thinking it. This means they can use it without using an incantation like everyone else has to. It's pretty incredible, so Ursula tells him to just hurry up and appraise the discard incantation and fireball. She does it again, but this time Ian appraises it. He feels immense pain again, and his body bursts into flames. After a quick heal, Ian tries again, but only manages to get the discard incantation. After 5 days of training with these abilities, it was clear that it would not be easy. Ian doesn't have a magic-oriented job, so his magical capacity is low, and he would collapse immediately. When he was out of magical power, Yuri would use a droplet from the world tree on him. The droplets are amazing as they don't just replenish magical powers, they also increase a person's total magic capacity. The only requirement is that they have to be consumed when the person is completely out of magic, otherwise the magic benefits don't work. Because of this, Ian had to keep fully depleting his magical power. However, after a month of this, Ian isn't just able to shoot 1,000 fireballs at once, he can also cast mid-level magic. The abilities he copied from the Gremlin and Ursula, his tirelessly trained physique, and his increased magic capacity, not to mention his Spirit Eye's super appraise. All this makes him believe that he's now capable enough for the next challenge. Ursula agrees and declares that it's time for Ian's revenge match. They go to find the Death Bear, but Ursula wonders why Ian is so nervous now. Ursula says that while Ian's still pretty weak, he is much stronger now than he was before. It's actually irritating to her how he was able to pick things up much faster than she expected. As long as Ian puts his training to use, she is sure that Ian will win. Ian is glad to see that even she can be nice, but she just rushes him into battle. Ian realizes that he's not his old self anymore, and he regains his confidence. Ian challenges the Death Bear head-on, and starts off with his barrage of fireballs. Ursula mocks him for his terrible aim, but he at least manages to make a smokescreen. Ian uses his insane speed to get into position, and he uses super appraise to slow everything down. He follows this up with a windstorm attack, and does some serious damage. The Death Bear is really angry now, and Ian realizes that his individual spells are weak because he's not a natural magic user. Because of this, he must make sure his attacks are precise and land directly. One hit clearly isn't enough, so Ian will have to keep hammering the beast until it falls. Ian unleashes his 100-round fireball next, and the bear shockingly collapses from the attack. Ian wonders if death bears were always this weak, but he realizes that he has just gotten a lot stronger. This was the end of episode 2. Subscribe to not miss the next part.